Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura Boyles, Director of Investor Relations for the Birmingham Business Alliance. We have a lot of new guests joining us today, so I'm going to briefly tell you about the Birmingham Business Alliance, or the BBA, as I'll refer to it before we move forward. Many of you have heard that just Monday, we announced the hiring of BBA's new president and CEO, Kenny Coleman. We're excited to have Kenny join us beginning July 20th, and we look forward to welcoming him back to Birmingham. The Birmingham Business Alliance is the leading economic development organization for the Birmingham 7-county region. We provide services to our investors and the community to create high-quality jobs and a strong economy. We accomplish this through economic development, workforce development, and talent attraction, policy advocacy, and image enhancement of the Birmingham region. Like many organizations, we have pivoted our efforts during COVID-19 to best serve our investors and businesses in the community. We have also helped local small businesses affected by unrest that occurred in downtown Birmingham the night of Sunday, May 31st, by partnering with several other community organizations to raise and award funds through the Birmingham Business Relief Fund. Through these challenging times, childcare has emerged as a major issue for employers and employees, resulting in major economic costs to employers and a negative economic impact on the state. According to the United States Chamber of Commerce Foundation, on average, states lose $1 billion annually due to breakdowns in childcare. This is a space the BBA has been more active in the last year, as childcare tax credits for the families and providers of educators were added to our legislative agendas. We now see greater opportunity to connect to the local business community with childcare providers to bridge the gap and help our community get back to work safely and more effectively and efficiently. This is an issue you'll see the BBA working in moving forward as we have been in the past. Now, please welcome our 2020 BREC Chair, Jessica Payne.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us virtually today. This is our second virtual BREC meeting. For those of us who are new, we've said BREC is the Birmingham Regional Enterprise Council. We normally meet at the BBA's offices and have quarterly lunches and great opportunities for networking. But as with everything else right now, we have gone virtual and hope we're still trying to find topics that are relevant and helpful as you're navigating this new normal from home or as you're returning to the office as well. Childcare has been something that comes up in so many conversations that I'm having. Everyone's trying to figure it out, from the childcare providers to the employers to the employees. Really, everybody needs to have this in place. And I know we've all been really kind of shaking things up over the last few months, and it's probably not the way it has always been in the past. So just as we're getting started today, we've got a great group, a panel that will kind of talk through a new report on the status of childcare, but also we want to have a little bit of an opportunity for some dialogue at the end. So for that, we're going to have everybody muted throughout the presentation until we open it up at the end. We'll be able to allow for Q&A then, and also just kind of a discussion amongst the group. Until then, the group chat will not be open, but you can privately chat and answer these questions. We wanted to really know, how has the closure affected you? Have you been able to maintain childcare throughout? Did you count on family to help? Did you work remotely and kind of have to multitask and care for your children and also do your job? Were you furloughed and really cared for your children full time? Or maybe used in-house help to really get everything accomplished that you needed to. So if you could just answer that question and send your answer to me in a private chat, I'm going to compile those answers and we'll talk back about it again at the end. And then also, which category or categories do you fit in? Are you a childcare provider, an employer, or a family utilizing childcare? We just want to know a little bit more about you as we're getting some of these answers and really kind of understanding the group and the audience that we have today. So go ahead and send me those answers in the private chat and I'll kind of start compiling. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to send those in a private chat to Laura Boyles for the Q&A period. And we'll have some of the folks on the panel able to help with answers for those as well. feel free if you have any questions too to privately chat us those, but otherwise, I know we're probably all getting relatively familiar with Zoom. You can feel free to move all the speaker panels along to the side so you can see the presentation or highlight just the primary speaker. And then I hope that you enjoy today. I'm going to lead into our first couple of speakers. That would be Myra Shaw and Jason Bryant. So Jason is a vice president or senior vice president and a commercial banker at CenterState Bank, and he is this year's chair of Childcare Resource Center. So Childcare Resources really benefits from his leadership. He has been at CenterState Bank since 2017, and he was at PNC, RBC, and First American Bank before that, and began his career at Regions Bank in the MA training program. He served as on the board of directors and the junior board at Childcare Resources and serves currently as the chair. He's on the advisory committee of the Greater Birmingham Auburn Alumni Club and has been the president of the club since 2014. So we really want to thank Jason for his leadership and contribution today. And then I'm also going to go ahead and introduce Myra Shaw, who will be really walking through the presentation. Myra is the director of programs at Childcare Resources. She's been with the agency over 18 years and has worked in the field of early care and education since 1990. She began her career as a preschool teacher and worked with children and families in a variety of roles as a teacher, after-school coordinator, and childcare director ever since. She provides leadership to the program department, which works daily to support the agency's vision that quality childcare will be available and affordable to all children and families. She's a proud parent of 2 teenagers, and in her free time, she enjoys relaxing in the backyard, growing vegetables, and I'm sure she's had a chance to do a lot of that over the past few months. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jason and let him really kind of kick things off. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Jessica, and good morning again to everyone, and thank you for joining us. We appreciate everyone being here. I do have the high honor of being the chair of the board this year, and we're excited to announce the release of our Status of Childcare report and appreciate the opportunity to partner with the Birmingham Business Alliance and the Birmingham Regional Enterprise Council today in this release. For more than 35 years, Childcare Resources has been a pillar of support for children and families in our community. As Central Alabama's only childcare resource and referral agency, Childcare Resources was created as an outgrowth of a child care task force convened by the United Way of Central Alabama in 1984 to address the critical child care needs identified in Jefferson, Shelby, and Walker counties. And then we added Blount County to the service area in 1988. Services provided to our community by Childcare Resources include financial assistance for low to moderate income working families, quality training and technical assistance for childcare providers, including a free early learning resource library and a mobile resource library van, research-based parent education resources, and free resource and referral assistance to hundreds of families in our community seeking quality childcare options for their young children. You'll hear from Myra here shortly, and Myra does a great job with our resource and referral piece at the agency. Over the last 10 years alone, more than 3,000 families in our community have received assistance from our supplemental child care program, with a total of nearly $2 million distributed to child care providers to offset child care costs. Nearly 3,000 training sessions have been provided to early child care professionals, totaling more than 5,000 training hours to improve the quality of care provided to children across our community. More than 188,000 free child care referrals have been provided to families through our resource and referral program to help them locate safe, quality learning environments for their young children. Childcare Resources and the BBA are working together to promote economic and workforce development in our community. Although much progress has been made, the report shows that we still have many challenges and opportunities to overcome to ensure every child has access to quality childcare and early education. Our agency, along with the BBA and you, have an important role to play in developing the workforce of the future. We all benefit by creating an environment that will allow children and families to dream big and realize their American dream. Our future entrepreneurs, small business owners, and professionals are being created today, and it's up to all of us to ensure that we're laying a solid foundation for them to stand on. Thank you for your time and thank you for joining us today. I'll now turn the program over to Myra Shaw, Director of Programs at Childcare Resources. Myra.
Jason, thank you so much and good morning, everyone. Over the next few minutes, I will provide an overview of the status of childcare report and highlight some of the key statements that you will find within the report. The report provides insight as to how the childcare industry supports economic growth and development for today's workforce and our workforce of tomorrow. It highlights some of the current challenges for families and childcare teachers and encourages the community to get involved as an advocate for early care and education. Childcare is unique as it is a powerful two-generation approach to building human capital that a prosperous and sustainable community requires. It supports working parents, increases workforce productivity, and helps businesses to attract and retain talent while providing children early learning experiences so they can enter kindergarten ready to thrive in school, work, and life. We know, and research continues to support, that a child, can we go to the next slide, please? We know, and research continues to support, that for a child to enter kindergarten ready to thrive, he or she needs daily quality interaction experiences from caring adults. For many children, this caring adult is their child care teacher. The most rapid time of development for a child is within the first few years of life. Critical to brain development is the daily interactive experiences a child receives from supportive, caring adults. This report will highlight some of the challenges that we see in early care and education. Families searching for care can encounter several challenges. Paying for care, child care is very expensive. Many programs have lengthy waiting lists. In the Birmingham area, there are some programs in which a family will wait for over a year to be able to enroll their child and to start in that program. Employees who work non-traditional work hours often cannot find care for the days and hours that they need it. And when a family is searching for care with a child with special needs, they often run into many obstacles when trying to find a child care program that will meet their unique and specific needs. These challenges have a direct effect on our economy. Ready Nation estimates that an annual cost of $57 billion is lost in earnings, productivity, and revenue when parents face challenges locating childcare. One solution that can help is for employers to offer family-friendly policies. Policies can include starting wages that are above minimum wage, paid parental leave, and corporate support for quality childcare. Research continues to demonstrate that family-friendly policies are a win-win solution as they benefit both the employee and the employer. The childcare industry also has challenges. Childcare teachers struggle still to earn a livable wage. In Alabama, the annual average salary for a childcare teacher is around $21,000, compared to a teacher teaching kindergarten earning almost $47,000. Childcare teachers are early educators who provide education, those interactive early learning experiences to Alabama's youngest residents. They should be recognized and compensated for the critical role they provide in building the educational foundation on which all future learning will occur. As child development and brain development research continues to demonstrate that learning begins at birth and is a lifelong journey. At the end of the report, there is a list of local, state, and national agencies with links to their websites. Many of them provide the opportunity to register and sign up for action and information alerts. I invite families, child care teachers and directors, educators and business leaders to make a commitment to take action, gain new knowledge, and get involved. Investments in early care and education foster individual and family well-being and ensure that communities are prepared to thrive. I also encourage you to take some time to review our status of child care report in its entirety. And if so moved to do so, share it with someone else. Share it with others. And let's come together to support quality care.
Thanks, Myra. I know we will be sending out a link to the report after this presentation, after the meeting, so that everybody can read through it in its entirety. It's impressive, the data that we have, and it's compelling to see that there's such a need for childcare and the link between that and economic development in our state. I know all of us who are users of childcare fully appreciate, especially probably more so now than ever before, the service that our childcare providers actually really do give to us and to help us to be the best employees that we can be. So we're curious if you want to continue sending in the private messages. Would love to hear what you may have learned from the summary that Myra just gave of the report. And if there's anything in particular that you were really wanting to see more about in the full report, that'll be coming, but we'd love to hear those questions as well. So feel free to send those in directly to me. Next up, we're going to have Bart Trench and Martina Winston from Protective, and they're going to talk a little bit more about employers and how they can support childcare and their employees as well. Martina is a vice president and a senior HR partner with Protective. She leads the diversity and inclusion efforts and the global talent programs with Protective's parent, Daiichi Life, which is based in Tokyo. Martina is very passionate about work, but she's also very involved in the community. She volunteers with the Junior League and she's been very involved with the Junior League in several different positions. She's also on the Childcare Resources board, so she can be another great resource today. If there's any questions, we can get her input as well. She's also been involved with the Kalat Jewish Family Services, Baptist Health Foundation, Pelham High School Cheer Boosters, Parks and Rec. I also know personally she's been involved with Zumba and has helped coach and taught classes. I feel like you'll see her energy level. She gives back a great bit to the community and always makes any group a whole lot more fun to be a part of. So we'll look forward to hearing from Martina and then Bart as well. Bart has worked in human resources and the financial services industry for the past 20 years. He's currently a compensation and benefits leader at Protective. In this role, he leads all the company's compensation programs, health and welfare benefits, along with wellness programs. He holds undergraduate and graduate degrees in psychology and a master's in human resource management from Culver House College of Business at the University of Alabama. He's also very active in the community on the board of directors at A.G. Gaston Boys and Girls Club and Workshops Inc., where he was the board president a few years ago as well. So Martina and Bart, thank you guys for helping out today, and we look forward to hearing what you guys have to say.
Jessica, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with this community in such a very important time. And I'm more excited to not only do it, Jessica and I have known each other for years and years and years. So I'm excited to be able to support the cause here. And then of course, my Childcare Resources family, super excited to be able to partner and share the good works of Childcare Resources and just how we're continuing to support the community in this time. And then would not be any more happy to serve alongside my partner in crime, Bart Trench, as we talk about just some things that we're doing from an employer side, and I'm going to leave that to Bart. He's really the subject matter expert here and is really helping our organization, particularly as we really focus on flexibility and really trying to listen and understand what do our employees need in this time of uncertainty and also just in this time of need. It's been really important, and I gotta brag on us a little bit because we've been setting this foundation and structure not just for our current pandemic that we're in, but we've been laying the foundation and groundwork for our employees to help to create a better space for them to be able to come to work in a very safe environment where they can think about, their children and think about childcare, and in that right state of mind, and not have to worry about that when they come to work. When I think about just the connection and what's happened, and the type of resources that's provided, I definitely will suggest leveraging a resource, for example, like Childcare Resources. So for corporations and organizations, if you're unsure about where to go and what to do, great partnership, as Childcare Resources is able to come in and kind of help walk you through not only the different options that the agency can provide, but also just provide some of these really good stats. I mean, I am continued to be blown away every day when I have an opportunity to engage at the board level on the impact that we're having in our community. For not only childcare providers, but also families that are really struggling to better understand and make some very hard decisions, especially when it impacts them financially. And so I'm so glad that we have a resource, like Childcare Resources, to help not only organizations, but also help those families in this time of need. And at Protective, we are in a very interesting time right now as families are needing a lot of flexibility. And as Jessica mentioned, I'm a human resource partner. So I spend a lot of time with our business leaders trying to think about how are we creating environments that are flexible for our employees so that they can continue to be successful and continue to thrive. And as we're all in this work from home environment right now, sometimes we might have to do things a little differently than when we were in our normal office setting. So when that's looking at flexible work schedules or flexible shifts so that employees can feel comfortable to be able to not only play mom or dad or caregiver, but some of us, as you guys might all were engaged in, some of us were also playing school teacher earlier this spring. And so we were having to be, to be very flexible. And not only for me, I have a 15-year-old who's very independent and gets everything done that she's supposed to. My 12-year-old is currently still on detention from school of Winston because he did not get the things done that he needed to. But I was also playing coach and trying to make sure that my children was also still being active and focusing on health and wellness, as I have two athletes in football and basketball and cheer. So it's hard to balance that when you're also trying to be a very successful professional. And so I completely understand, not only from a leader standpoint and an employer standpoint, but also as a mom, I definitely understand the difficulties that we're all trying to balance. So, but I'll turn it over to my partner, Bart, to talk through a little bit more specifics on how we've approached really setting our employees up for success in that space, and also some of the things that we're learning in this current pandemic. Bart?
Thanks, Martina. Good morning to everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone about what we are doing at Protective, specifically around family-friendly policies and benefits. I'd like to first just start out with a couple of thoughts about how we think about it at Protective, and then I'll get into a few of our specific policies and programs that we have at Protective. I think most of you on the phone know we've been in Birmingham for over 100 years, so we have a long history, and I know a couple of things to be true. The first is we have built our success on hard work and dedication by thousands of people, not only in Birmingham, but across the country. But I also know that we've never had a department shut down. We've never missed a financial goal. We have never had a single issue because an employee took some time off to deal with their family, with childcare, with a sick loved one. And I think that's probably the truest for all companies across the Birmingham area. So I think we take that mindset and help our employees with as much as we can while trying to run our business. I think the other thing that we do really well is we have a strong focus on well-being. Historically, we have had a real strong focus on health and continue to evolve that into mental health and financial well-being. I think when we look at when we benchmark against our peers, we consistently have low healthcare claims. We have very positive health outcomes. And I think this is an important link to what we were talking about today. When you look at physical health, mental health, financial health, there's a lot of other areas of health that we could talk about, I think they all play a vital role in helping employees be their best at work and their best at home. Because let's face it, work is hard. That's why we call it work. Being a parent is hard. And when you're also trying to deal with health concerns or financial concerns, that makes things just as that much harder for our folks to be productive both at work and at home. We can't solve for everything, but if we can try to help our employees manage some of those issues, we think they're a better employee and a better family member when they're away from work. So what are a few things that we try to focus on? Again, we can't solve for everything. We don't try to boil the ocean. We try to be real strategic in the ways that we support our employees. So I want to talk about a couple of them. And I think you'll see a big theme is around flexibility. And Martina talked a fair amount about that. The first thing I want to mention, and Myra touched on this in her comments as well, we want to make sure we're paying competitive wages. We have the minimum an employee makes at Protective is $15 an hour, but the majority make it in excess of that. And again, going back to my earlier comments around financial well-being, if you're dealing with financial issues and those kind of things, it is hard to be a productive employee and manage all that you're trying to do at home. So I think that is sort of a foundational item for us at Protective. Like a lot of companies, we have a pretty generous paid time off bank. We don't have a sick bank and a vacation bank. Everything is lumped into one. All of our employees start with a minimum of 3.5 weeks from the day they start with us. And we have many employees that have up to 5.5 weeks to take time off with their family and have fun on vacations, to deal with their own illness issues, to care for a loved one when they're sick, and then deal with all those things that come up on a daily basis. To be able to take a day off and go and look at different childcare centers and make that decision for where you want to put your child in daycare, for example, would be a great use of paid time off under our policy. I think also, again, Martina talked about this, and we continue to see this even in a greater extent here during this time with the pandemic, is I think we just generally have a culture around flexibility. Again, we've got a business to run, we've got work to do, but it is, I can't think of a time. I used to do the work that Martina does as an HR partner. Employee, tells a manager, hey, I've got to go pick up my kid at daycare because he or she is sick. That is just not something, at least in our culture, that we would ever say, no, you can't do that. You've got to stay at work. So we try very hard to support our employees, run our business, and help them deal with the kind of stuff that can pull our attention away from work and allow them the time off to focus on that and get those things figured out, and then come back to work and be fully productive. We've done a couple of things recently around providing additional time off with full pay, because that's always an issue. You can always provide time off, but if you're not paid during that time, that makes it challenging. A couple of years ago, we added a paid parental leave for new parents. That's both moms and dads. So the way that looks for us is if you're adopting as a mom or dad, you have 6 weeks off of full pay to bond with your newly adopted child. If you're giving birth, the birth mother gets her 6 weeks off, could be up to 8 weeks under our short-term disability policy. And then she gets 6 additional weeks on top of that paid to bond. And then dads as well get 6 full weeks of time to bond with their child. It was interesting when we implemented that. We knew our moms, our birth mothers would take advantage of it. They were already taking that time off to bond after short-term disability. They were just doing it unpaid in a lot of cases. We weren't really sure with the dads. And just as a kind of a recommendation for those of you who are running businesses and leaders in businesses, one of the keys to a lot of strategies like this is to make sure your leaders are on board. We had our CEO, Rich Beelan, sent out a great letter when we implemented that, touting that, encouraging people to use it, expressing that he wished he had a policy like this when his boys were born. So I think that's great to have that advocacy at the top. And again, we weren't sure on the dads how much they would take it. Would they use the full 6 weeks? Would they maybe just take a week or two? But over the last 2 years that we have tracked this, the majority of the dads have taken the full 6 weeks that we have offered. And that is great. That's what we wanted. We just weren't sure if they were going to do it culturally. And I think that speaks to our culture and how we support parents and taking the time and using the benefits that we have. Recently, with the pandemic, we were trying to figure out how we can best support employees with various issues that come up with the COVID, whether it's their own illness, whether it's a family illness, whether it's trying to deal with kids who are home from school that they weren't expecting or home from daycare. So we added an additional 10 days of paid time off that people could use for all those things that I just mentioned, whether you're sick, whether a family member is sick, whether you're home being teacher and coach and parent, and you just needed additional time off on top of the paid time off that we offer. We instituted that, and that's been largely successful as well. A couple other quick things that I'll mention, and then I'll turn it back over to Jessica. We have employee assistance. Again, being a parent is hard. It can get stressful, and we provide up to 6 free visits for all of our employees with a counselor to talk through any number of issues. We also support our dependents. So if there's a kid dealing with a parent that is having issues, they can seek our employee assistance as well with those up to 6 free visits. And then finally, we have a relationship with a company, a national company called Maven. We were one of their first clients. They are a company that is focused on helping new parents. And again, think of employee assistance for specifically that issue. Primarily our moms use it, but dads can also use a way for new parents, both prior to birth and after birth, to talk with a professional, whether it's nutritional ideas, post-birth for women, lactation issues. There's someone there 24 hours a day that they can talk to. We also use Maven for milk shipping. So when our professional women that are traveling across the country, whether it's in sales or at conferences, need to deal with, what do they do when they're expressing milk? They can ship it back to their home. And so that's another way that we try to support our new parents during that kind of initial few years after a baby is born. So hopefully that gives you a feel for some of the things we're doing at Protective. There's a lot more we could be doing, certainly. And I think there's probably a lot of different ideas that different companies are doing across the Birmingham area. But I wanted to at least touch on the things that we're doing that we feel real strong about and think that they do a great job supporting our employees in that kind of parenthood space, if you will. So thanks for having us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Martina and Bart. I love that. What I feel like a theme there is kind of creativity and flexibility. I think those are things that every company needs to really kind of embrace and really figure out for their workforce. How do they brainstorm with them and figure out what the needs are? Because they might be very different from the company next door. But I'm seeing a lot of comments coming to me and to the group about how amazing that is. And I completely agree. So if there's anything that you heard in this part of the presentation as well that you feel like you want to send us a comment and we can talk about a little bit more in the group discussion. One of the questions we'd like to pose to the group too is, do you feel like you could take some of this information and advocate internally at your own company? Maybe advocate for a new policy that would be helpful that you hear now other companies are doing or embracing, and it would be something that could really make a difference for you and your coworkers. So think about those things. Feel free to send those responses to me, and we can come back to that in the group discussion as well. And now I'm going to turn it over to Laura, who's going to help with the Q&A with any questions that may have come in or anything that we've had at the beginning. And we're going to have Joan Wright join us for the Q&A panel as well. And Joan is the Executive Director for Childcare Resources. Childcare Resources, as you've heard, but it's a Central Alabama United Way partner, childcare resource and referral agency. She's only the 2nd executive director for the agency. And they were awarded the Nonprofit of the Year award by the Birmingham Business Journal in 2018. 2012, Joan received the CEO of the Year award in the nonprofit category, also from the BBJ. And she was a finalist for this award again in 2017. Joan's also an active volunteer in her church, and she lives in St. Clair County with her husband and 1 daughter, and her other daughter is married and lives out of state. But thank you, Joan, for joining us. We know you're an expert in this field, and you'll be able to help us with a lot of the questions that might be coming in. Thanks.
Great, glad to be here. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Wonderful. thank you everyone for sharing, what's going on with your companies and organizations. It's very helpful. We had some questions come in through registration. And so with the first one being, Joan, this one might be for you, but with the report, was there anything that surprised you in your findings that you weren't expecting, or whether good or bad?
The first thing I'll say about that sort of surprised me is the overall economic impact of the total childcare industry being literally in the billions of dollars. And I knew that childcare had an economic impact. I didn't realize it was to that degree. So I think that's something to sort of take note, and for companies to say, where is that 57, whatever the number is, $1 billion, where is that affecting your company? Where are you on that amount?
I definitely agree. I was surprised to see that. Definitely impactful. Okay, another question we received was, do you think that young children should wear masks while in childcare?
That is a challenging question. Certainly there are different ordinances throughout the state. And so first I would say you need to know what the ordinance is in your jurisdiction and what is required to comply with that. For example, here in Birmingham, if you're in the city limits of Birmingham, they do have a mask ordinance. They did recently amend that for children under a certain age, that wearing a mask is optional. It's really up to the discretion of the parent and the caregiver. So the main thing there is to just be mindful of exposure for your child and what can you do to minimize that exposure. And not only exposure to your child, but exposure from your child. Again, following CDC guidance, being aware of local and state ordinances that affect you, and really using best judgment on best ways to not only protect your child, but to protect them from inadvertently possibly sharing the virus with others. So it's really kind of a decision of the parent or the caregiver.
No, good answer. Definitely a big concern. And I know we have a lot of childcare providers on the line, so I'm sure they appreciate that feedback. Here's a question that, could be, Martina and Bart could be a good one for y'all. We had someone mention that, they're concerned, about, the need of ongoing sensitivity and diversity and inclusion training for administration, teachers, and aides. Do y'all have any kind of feedback to provide to what's not really a question, but just they mentioned that that's a concern that they have?
Absolutely, Laura. Thank you. I'll take that one, and Bart, feel free to jump in. Bart's also a really good expert in this space as well. I definitely think that as we think about just kind of our current environment and just kind of the state of our communities today, the education around diversity, equity, and inclusion is extremely important. And it's more right now, I think a lot of folks are really trying to do a better job of listening and better understanding different perspectives. And it's not just all about black or white, or it's not just all about male or female, or even when you're thinking about in the childcare space, having those conversations early and helping those children really understand how to value diverse perspectives and diverse experiences and diverse ways of thinking is really important. I think when we talk about early childhood development, that's a part of that development piece. It's not just learning the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s. It's about those true life lessons. And I think today, again, in our current environment in the world, is really important. Now, outside of the childcare space, when I think about our employers, it is extremely important for our employers to really take a step back and to really focus and put this on their list of priorities to make sure that they are further educating themselves on really valuing diversity, and also not just the diversity for diversity's sake, but also thinking about inclusion and how do we be inclusive and create those inclusive environments that allows for people to be their true authentic selves. Bart, I'm not sure if you had anything to add.
No, I don't think I can, Martina. You said it well. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, very well put. So if you're a childcare center and you wanted to utilize some of the services that Childcare Resources provide, is that something that you have to pay for or be a member? How does that work?
Okay, that's a great question. And I will answer first off that Childcare Resources is a non-profit organization. We really exist on the kindness and goodness of people in the community that choose us as one of their charities to donate. So for that reason, almost everything we do here is free. We do have some fees for some of our training sessions. We have a wonderful conference that virtually this Saturday. There's still time to register. You can go to our website, get information. So certain trainings and the conference do have a cost, but for the most part, everything we do is free. There's no membership required either by providers or parents. We just ask that particularly providers keep us current on their information. So when we make free referrals to families, we're making those referrals based on current information. And we have a standard form that we go through with providers to make sure we're providing the most comprehensive information about their program for families that may need to utilize their services. So that's what we do with regards to services out to the community. It's mostly free.
Okay, wonderful. That's a great service, especially on a already tight budget industry. Joan, are you concerned about childcare centers not reopening permanently and the impact that can have?
Yes, certainly. That is something that has been top of mind throughout this whole pandemic process. As of, I want to say maybe a week or so ago, roughly 50% of childcare across Alabama had reopened. At that time, the vast majority of those that had reopened were licensed childcare centers with family childcare being right up there with them. And then licensed care being the lowest percent, licensed exempt care being the lowest percentage of currently operating childcare. However, we do know that the rest of childcare is still contemplating if and when they're going to reopen. And certainly programs that have reopened may find that due to low enrollment numbers, we know families are not all coming back to childcare at this time. Sometimes there's staffing challenges, getting staff to return to childcare, that over the long term, they may find they have to modify their decision to open and may end up closing their doors either temporarily or then permanently. So again, it is a concern. National surveys early on in the pandemic were indicating that as much as 30 to 50% of childcare across the country would not reopen their doors. And that's certainly concerning, yet it's understandable. Childcare, as Myra pointed out in the report, is expensive. And we believe that the childcare workforce is actually underpaid. And so it's a challenge to balance the cost of childcare so it's affordable for families against the true cost of what it needs to provide a quality early education environment opportunity for those families that need it for their young children. So it's something to continue to monitor and to be in touch and find ways that you can support childcare to keep their doors open.
Okay, wonderful. It seems like we're getting a lot of versions of basically, how can you be open? What precautions can you take as a childcare center to make sure the children are safe, your employees are safe, and then, how are childcare centers finding this information out? Is there one, entity that provides that information? Are they just communicating with each other? Like, how can you guide them through that?
Certainly, I'll take that again. Some places to start would be on Alabama Department of Human Resources website. They have a section there for childcare, and they've been updating it regularly with information about responding in a COVID environment for childcare. They've also posted copies of their memos there for childcare providers, particularly those that are serving families that are on childcare subsidy. So they can find those latest memos there. Also, of course, the CDC is a great site, the Centers for Disease Control. They also have information for childcare around how do you do social distancing with young children. They have information about wearing masks and how do you approach that with young children. So those are places that you can go. During the months of April and May, Childcare Resources, along with others, partners throughout the state, offered a series of webinars called Wonderful Wednesday webinars. Those have been recorded and they are accessible on our agency website. So you can go there. Some of those were specific to topics of cleaning and sanitation. Our friends at Jefferson County Department of Health helped put that content together. It's very, very informative. And there's other information and resources throughout those webinars that you can look at. If you want, you can go to Early Learning Leaders, earlylearningleaders.org, I believe is the website. They too have a variety of resources for any child care provider across the country wanting to know how to safely operate in this environment. They have checklists there you can go through with both staff and your families that can help you make sure you're communicating and practicing best ways to prevent and hopefully avoid spreading the virus. Certainly when it comes to staff, if they can wear masks, that would be helpful because then they're protecting themselves and the children in their care. Often, particularly with infants and toddlers, it's difficult to offer care for them because of the feeding, the toileting, and those kinds of things, to do that from a 6-foot distance. So again, frequent hand washing is encouraged both for the children and the caregivers, making sure where you can have distance to try to do that, and thinking about managing toys and other play materials. Again, what I've heard some centers say is they have kind of a bucket for these items need to go to the cleaning area and these items are available for play, and they engage the children in that process so that it's less stressful on the children, it's less stressful on the caregiver, and make it part of children's engagement and their opportunities to say, now remember when you're finished with that, let's put it over here, like some of them call it the icky bucket. Let's put those items in the icky bucket. And I heard another provider say that every child in their care is a super germ fighter, and they're to imagine they have on their superhero cape and they are a super germ fighter. So keeping the hands clean, helping one another clean up the toys and put them away. So again, thoughtful approaches, remembering these are children. They do have fears and anxieties, and the best that we can do is just encourage best practices, which are cleaning and sanitation, frequent hand washing, social distancing where that makes sense, especially with young children. I know it's a challenge. And again, where appropriate, wearing masks and making sure hands are clean when they're touching masks. So those are just some tips I would offer. And again, our website, ccr-bhm.org, has a lot of these resources and links as well.
That's great feedback, Joan. Also seem to getting several questions about what to do in a child care center if you have a sick child or staff member, and I guess how that could be the same or different from when that happens with any other infectious disease that they're normally in tune to dealing with, and have you seen that even happen yet?
I personally have not seen it. I have heard of a center that opened recently only to have to close their doors because one of their staff contracted the virus, and so they closed their center. So again, I would check with your local health department first to find out what their procedures are for reporting exposure to illness, and making sure you're following those precautions and guidelines. Certainly frequent cleaning and sanitation is important, and make sure you're doing that. With regard to a child that may become ill while they're in care, what's recommended is to certainly isolate that child as soon as it's available. And again, I'll just invite people to be mindful of isolating that child. You know, you don't want them to feel bad as if they did something wrong to have this illness that's requiring them to be sort of away from their friends. So be delicate about how you manage that with the child. Certainly no child should be left unattended. Still someone has to stay with that child, but they just need to be sort of taken away from their friends at the moment until a parent or other assigned person can get them. That's also something you need to look at your parent policies, your family policies, your operationals, guidelines. What is your policy now with regards to how you inform parents of a child that needs to be picked up? How you inform the extended list of people that are on that approved list to pick up children? So visit those policies now. If they need to be strengthened, make sure you do that. If they need to be modified, make sure you do that so that you have it in writing so your parents know what to expect and your staff know what to expect, how to respond. So those are just some ideas. Again, I would encourage you to check with your local health authority as well as DHR and even the CDC to see how they recommend handling exposure to illness within a business.
Wonderful. This might be a good question for Bart and Martina. And it's kind of basically saying, let's say you're not in a company that's as welcoming as Protective is. And what would you want to hear from your employees? They might be timid to advocate for some of these things that y'all have. Do you have any advice to, I'm trying to think of what would you like to hear from the employee? How, what's maybe a good way to get that started? A conversation about, just better benefits like y'all provide.
Yeah, I think, a couple things come to mind. I don't know that I can necessarily give advice to an employee that is struggling with how to voice their concerns or express an interest in a company having particular policies or benefits. I probably can only maybe speak a little bit from an employer standpoint. One is to just ask. We do that on a regular basis across a lot of different things. Sometimes it's pretty sophisticated surveys that we get outside companies to help us with. Sometimes we just do quick Survey Monkey kind of surveys to get the pulse. And we've got some internal surveying capability that we've been using lately. So here's just an example. We did a benefit survey a couple of years ago, and stuff like pet insurance and sabbaticals pop up. We're, like I said earlier, we're not going to do pet insurance. We're not going to do sabbaticals. That's probably taken a little bit further than we would want to go. But that does give employees an opportunity, particularly anonymously, to express, hey, we're interested in this kind of policy. That paid parental leave policy that I talked about coming in place a couple of years ago, that was not only from survey, but that was just one-on-one. Every time our leave administrator would interact, not every time, but a lot of times when our leave administrator would interact with particularly women going on leave, would say, hey, gosh, is there anything you can do to help me with that additional 6 weeks that if I want to take off, I would be not paid. And so, that's the dialogue. Sometimes from the employee standpoint, the only thing I can encourage is just be brave. If you have a case to make, do you have any data that you can provide? And just provide your explanation as to why you think it's a good idea. Gosh, I would hope no employer, leader, manager would completely dismiss that and would at least listen. But always coming with a good case is very helpful.
Wonderful. Okay, I think one more question, and then we're going to transition back to Jessica. And this one, I'm guessing is from a childcare provider. They're asking about, parents that are actually coming inside the centers when they're doing drop off and pickup now. And one of the concerns with that is they, need to do a card swipe, I guess, for payment. And so if they're looking for suggestions around that, I can say the child care center my children go to, I have seen one sitting outside on a table where we do sign in and sign out. So it looks like they have a portable one. But Joan, do you or anyone else know of ways that other centers are handling that?
I'll respond and then invite Myra if she knows of any other resources to chime in as well. Yes, that is a challenge. One idea may be to check with your bank. A lot of banks have ways to contactless payment. So I know there's things such as Zelle, there's Venmo, there's different ways that you don't have to use an actual transaction, if you will, with a device and a card and interaction. So I would talk first with your bank and ask them for some guidance on contactless ways to accept payment. That's one idea. Something else I heard a provider say is that if they are using a swipe device that maybe has a keypad, or if you have a use of a keypad for other reasons in your interaction with families, is what that particular program did is they had a jar of Q-tips, and the families were able to pick a Q-tip and use that to depress the numbers on the keypad, then just throw the Q-tip away. You know, there's also the idea with pens. Having one place said parents are responsible for using their own pen. They have to bring their own pen to do sign in, because if you're a licensed program, DHR still requires you to physically sign your child in. So they were saying, you know, still doing that curbside, just have the parent provide their own pen rather than that being something the center has to manage. So those are just some initial thoughts that may be helpful. And if Myra, you have any other ideas, I invite you to join as well.
Joan, this is Myra. That's good information, and I would just continue to let providers know that if they are serving families who are on the substitute program, that yes, the parent does need to continue to swipe their card and keep that with them on their person. And so I would encourage you, if there is an idea out there of something that we haven't thought of, if you are providing care to subsidy children, please reach out to me. Give me some suggestions of what's working well for you at your center, and I'll be sure to pass that along to others. We're all still learning. The other thing I would add is some folks are having, when the children come to school, they now have school shoes and home shoes, and they're leaving their home shoes at their classroom door, and when they enter class, they're coming in and putting on their school shoes, again, to try to cut down on the environmental things coming into the building. But again, please share those with us if you have some suggestions, and we will share those out with the group.
Wonderful. And just a reminder, we are going to send out the reports following this meeting, but also if you have any questions, feel free to contact me and I'll see if we can chase down an answer for you and follow back up. And then before we transition to Jessica, you know, do you have any kind of conferences or anything coming up that y'all would like to mention?
Well, yes, what a wonderful segue there, Laura. How would you ever have known that? Yes, in fact, we have our fabulous Sky's the Limit conference kicking off this Saturday, June 27th. It is virtual, of course. Our team has assembled a dynamic, energizing, informative conference for you. Our keynote speaker is none other than nationally acclaimed New York Best Times Seller List author Eric Litwin. If you're familiar with the Pete the Cat series or possibly the Nuts and Groovy Joe, he is the author of those books, and he brings together music and literacy to provide an energizing way to interact with young children and through literacy. So he's won numerous literacy awards, including the Theodore Geisel Seuss Award, and we're delighted he's going to be our keynote speaker. There is a fee for that. We do ask that you register in advance. So again, you can go to our website and click on the link for the Groove and Learn Sky's the Limit conference and take care of that there. Once you're registered, the conference is available for a full 2-week period. Everything is recorded and you can participate in that. It's a great way to get some inspiration in innovation and creativity, as you again are playing a very important role in meeting the needs of early education for our young children to set the stage for their later foundation and success in life. So we certainly would encourage people to check that out. Sky's the limit, virtual.
Wonderful. We are definitely familiar with Pete the cat in my home. So Jessica, we will hand it to you now.
Good deal. Ironically, I just got an email update about the fairy tale ball that's coming up as well. So for those of you who have not been to the fairy tale ball, this was one of my first introductions to Childcare Resources, and it's always been an amazing event that my two little girls have enjoyed. But I know it's fun for the little boys as well, as there are Star Wars characters and Disney princesses and an opportunity to interact. And it looks like this year will be virtual, so everyone can feel free participating and enjoying from their home. So make sure to be on the lookout for that if you have young children that you think it could be a good fit for. I know we are searching right now for anything that we can do to entertain ourselves at home. So this could be another great thing to add to the list. So at this point, I have just, I believe, unmuted everyone or given you the opportunity to unmute yourselves. We'd love to hear from the group a little bit more. Please keep yourself on mute if you're not going to be participating, but unmute yourself if you want to participate. Talk a little bit more. We had some great results from the survey at the beginning. It looks like this group is a true. We have a lot of childcare providers, we have lots of employers, and we have employees that are here today and participating. So from the questions that we've received, it sounds like there's a lot of people really trying to get advice on how to operate safely. We'd be curious also to hear, are you comfortable sending your children back to daycare, to childcare providers? Have you already? From the answers that we received, it looks like a lot of people used all of the options. A lot of people multitasked and took care of their kids at home. A lot of people used in-house nannies, families to help support their work and watch their kids. And then some people were able to continue to use their existing daycare throughout. But most people used a combination of all of those. I know I used a combination of all those just to be able to kind of, depending on the day, get through the day and get everything done. So would love to hear from you. If you sent in a response, want to talk a little bit more about it. If you still have some more questions, feel free to unmute yourself. And this is the opportunity for us to all engage a little bit more directly. So I have unmuted and we're open for anybody. I know also Tommy Mayfield from Wendy has sent in a couple of comments. This is another resource that some employers are using, is working with Wendy to be able to find new babysitters. It might be that your existing babysitter is not available and you're trying to find somebody new, or you're trying to establish an ongoing relationship. Tommy, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about how you've worked with some of the companies out there too.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I don't know if you want me to be on video, but I think you've got me locked out of video. So if you want me to be,
okay.
Not that anybody wants to see my face, but there we go.
Be there real quick.
Great.
Oh, there we go.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks to everybody who's led these efforts and who's spoken today. I think, the work that y'all are doing is incredibly important for our entire ecosystem here. So just wanted to say how much I personally and on behalf of the community appreciate the work you guys are doing. I think innovation and creativity, obviously being in the startup space, like those are concepts we think a lot about, but I think they have a lot of application here, particularly for our largest employers. So I'm excited about the conversations that's happening. As Jessica mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of Wendy, which is a mobile app that connects parents with background checked college babysitters. We're Birmingham based. I'm a Birmingham native. And I'll try to keep this very brief, but basically Wendy came about as an opportunity to solve a problem that my wife and I had. We've got two little girls and they're now 7 and 9, but 4 or 5 years ago, they were both under 5. I was an attorney practicing at Maynard Cooper. My wife was getting her master's degree at night, and we, had these 2 little ones. So the babysitting challenge was very real for us. And we kind of got to a point where we're like, I can press a button and I can get a card show up in my house. I can get my groceries delivered. Why is there not an easier way for me to get a trusted babysitter? So that was sort of the genesis for where Wendy was born. We were recognized from the get-go, if we're going to be successful, we've got to build a platform that parents like us can trust. And so we've gone about that really in 3 key ways. The first is all of our sitters are full-time college graduate students at trusted local universities. The second is our onboarding and vetting process. So every college student who wants to be a Wendy has to apply online. We verify their enrollment. We ask them questions about their experience. We do a video interview and run them all through a background check before they can access the app. And then the third is the features that we built into the app. So we have filters, so you can browse through we have thousands of sitters in Birmingham. If you're someone who says, I'd really like a UAB nursing major who's involved in XYZ activity on campus, you can press 3 buttons and find all the sitters who fit those preferences. We also have a social connections component where parents can connect with their friends. So when I look at a sitter's profile, I can see, oh, Susie, the sitter, has babysat for my friend down the street 3 times, and that friend has given the sitter a 5-star rating every time. So we've sort of taken the word of mouth recommendation and overlaid technology onto it. So very brief update on or overview of what Wendy is, but to get to your question about what we've been doing during COVID, first is we've partnered with a Wendy user who's also an infectious disease doctor at UAB. Her name's Ellen Eaton. So she's been advising us throughout the COVID period about best practices, both for families and for sitters, which has been really helpful. We've also partnered with UAB as well as Alabama Power, who both piloted programs with us to provide Wendy as an additional employee benefit to some of their essential frontline folks who couldn't go into lockdown but still had to show up at work every day. That was, both of those were really successful, and I think enabled us as a company to kind of create an offering that we could replicate with other employers. So we can, both UAB and Alabama Power provided different forms of subsidy. So it could be either a sliding scale where based on your employees' salaries, the company would pick up a certain percentage of the hourly rate. Other companies just provided sort of a lump sum benefit. But we've now got the tools in place to manage onboarding folks to a program, reporting on the usage, handling reimbursement. So we've kind of built out an offering that I think could be really useful to other employers who are looking for innovative solutions. And then, the other thing that's great about Wendy is we're not just supporting parents in the community, we're also supporting college students, many of whom need, a flexible income while they're in school. So we've put, more than $3 million into the pockets of college students just in Birmingham alone since we launched. So for those of you who are employers on the call, I would love to follow up with any of you who'd be interested in chatting further about this. My email is just tommy@wendy.com. And then also with childcare providers, if there's centers who are on the call, we've been talking with Harris Early Elementary, and while they've reopened, they're having to kind of reopen in waves due to, social distancing requirements. So they actually passed along. We've also developed what we're calling kind of a dedicated sitter program. So recognizing that while the beauty of Wendy is you can pretty much post a job anytime and any day and get a sitter, given the public health implications right now, people would prefer to have one sitter who could come, for a week or a month or whatever. And so we've developed a program to be able to match parents with those sitters. And so Harris, for example, passed along that information to their parents so that for those who they couldn't invite back, they had sort of an alternative to provide. So if you go to wendy.com/summer sitters, that's kind of we sort of rolled it out at the beginning of the summer. Like I said, we will probably continue it into the fall. So we'll probably rebrand it as dedicated sitters or something like that. But anyway, I'm sorry to take up so much time, but appreciate the opportunity to be on this call and with this group, and would love to continue to think about ways to help one another. So.
Thanks, Tommy. I think the whole point of this discussion is to be able to provide as many resources to the community as we can. I hope everybody has really kind of gotten that out of today. Be curious if there are any questions, anything y'all want to talk through, anybody who'd love to comment on some of the survey results or the advocacy piece of what you think you may be able to do going forward with this information. Anybody feel like sharing? It's a great time to chime in. And if not, that is fine as well. We
Hey, Jessica.
Yep, I hear one coming in.
I'm sorry, this is Lauren Millard. I just had a quick question. So I've been working with our children's school, and one of our challenges is we have some concerns for families that might not necessarily be as responsible if their child's sick. We affectionately refer to them as the Tylenol dosers. They might give their kids some medicine in the morning to get through half the day, knowing they can knock out a little bit. And I was just wondering what other groups are doing in order to get around some potential concerns about the self-regulation that parents really need to start doing, making sure that all of our parents are participating in that.
I think that's a tricky one. You know, I don't know if there's any childcare providers on the line who have any broad advice, or Joan, if you have anything to add. But I know that's probably some of the thought process that goes into everybody's mind as you're really making a personal decision about sending your kids back. Joan, anything you'd want to add there?
Basically what she's referring to is what some people may call drug and drop. I know that sounds a little crass, but that's sort of what it's called. It's where you give your child some medication so that hopefully their symptoms are minimized and less noticed for a little while so the parent can get to work, knowing that they may get called back in, because if a child is truly sick, medications are not necessarily always going to mask those symptoms, particularly a fever, which is a strong indication of a possible contagious illness. So I just would, again, at this time, two things really. One, to Bart's point earlier, perhaps the reason the parent's doing that is they may not work for such a flexible, supportive employer. And it's important to have those discussions in a professional way to say, I need to have some flexibility when my child is sick, so that they're not being put in that compromising position of sending their child to school with potential infectious germs, basically. The other thing is to just be mindful of what you're exposing other people to, and really what you're doing to your own child to minimize their own ability to fight off whatever's causing their illness, and those sort of things. I will say there are a couple of ill child care facilities that actually will work with you when your child is sick. One is called Hugs and Kisses, and Myra, please chime in if I'm not giving out the correct information. But that's called Hugs and Kisses. It's in downtown Birmingham, and they are equipped to provide care to mildly ill children so that a person could still go to work. At Children's of Alabama, they have some of their own internal child care that may be able to help with that as well. So those are just some things I would offer. Like you said, Jessica, it is tricky, and we just really would like for people to do what is really going to be best first for that child, and recognize what additional exposure may happen by just sort of clandestine and sending your child to school hoping nobody notices, but yet the child may cough, sneeze, have a runny nose, may have an upset stomach, diarrhea, whatever. And those are common signs of transmittable illnesses. So just be mindful and be respectful of what exposure you're giving to others by doing that for your child.
And we did hear from the group, someone commented in that a lot of childcare provider areas are checking not only at the door those temperatures, but 2 hours later, so that it's not going too long before that would be detected. So that might be something to talk about with your center to see how they're checking, when they're checking, how often, to see if that could give you a little bit additional level of comfort as well.
Thank you.
I think that advocacy on the front end and the conversation on the front end with employers is such an important piece of this discussion that could really help everybody kind of get more comfortable before you get to the point of hopefully never bringing in a sick child, but really feeling comfortable that you wouldn't have to.
And if I could just add one more thought on that, Jessica, is because so many employers have made remote working available, that again, communicate with your employer. There may be some times where when your child is mildly ill, that you could actually still work from home. It's just a child that's sick. So again, having those conversations with your employer, most likely your direct supervisor, to see what kind of flexible options exist so that you can make sure your child is not being put in a compromising situation to either affect their own health or impact the health of others. That's a conversation to have as well.
I think that's a great point. I think we've all shown over the past 4 months that everyone is able to be pretty efficient working from home and remotely. And I think a lot more employers are open to that idea now. So. Any other questions for the group or discussion that we would like to kind of talk through while we have everybody in the last couple minutes? Going once. So maybe.
Jessica, I know one thing to consider, we're all, those of us who can work from home are very fortunate. There's a lot of people who don't have that option, whether it be in manufacturing or, in different service type positions or essential workers. So the childcare providers who are, with us right now, if you want to reach out to me, and we, it might be that we need to create a conversation around that specifically. We are definitely bought in on helping childcare. So if that means we need to have additional meetings to address things, we're definitely going to look into facilitating that. So that's I think one thing that we haven't really talked about today, but that's a big issue too. And I know a lot of the providers out there are dealing with that. So, just keep us in the loop. And, one thing we've learned through COVID is, a lot of people don't realize they can just reach out to the Birmingham Business Alliance and call us. We like to help you. We want to solve your problem. And if we can't, we're definitely going to find someone else who will. So make sure you're utilizing us as a resource.
Hey, this is Tommy. I just had one more thing to add on that last point about kids showing up at daycares or schools sick. One of the things that, I think the reason why that happens historically is if a parent either has to go to work, or even if they are working remotely, working with a 2-year-old in your space is pretty challenging. We want, before COVID, one of the things I didn't really touch on earlier was, trust is the most important piece of what we do at Wendy, but the other piece of it is the convenience and reliability that we provide. So about 95% of all jobs posted on Wendy are successfully completed, and about 1 in 5 of those jobs is actually created, booked, and completed on the same day. So what we've sort of delivered, which is very different than a lot of other offerings, is truly kind of an on-demand service. So I've had plenty of stories of users who got in that exact situation where they woke up at 7 a.m., they had a work meeting at 8, their spouse was out of town and their kid was running 102 fever, and they were able to actually go on, post a job at Wendy and have somebody at their house in time to make that meeting. So I think that's another use case where we can be helpful. And to the earlier point about the challenges around odd work schedules, if you're not working a 9-to-5 job, a similar way that we can be helpful. We've had sitters who showed up at 3 in the morning or at 11 o'clock at night, and these are college students, so a lot of them seem to be night owls anyway. So just wanted to make that point, if that can be another resource for folks to hopefully, again, help curb parents being put in the hard situation of having to decide, do I send my kid when they probably shouldn't be in that environment. So.
Great. May see another question or two coming in.
Hello, I would like to say something.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Yep.
Okay. My name is Jacqueline Henderson, and I'm in the Birmingham, Alabama, in the Hustling area. And I am a provider, and some people that low income and out of jobs, and some are getting unemployment and some are not. I was just wanting everyone to know, if you know someone or you are one that's in that predicament, in that situation, you can sign up at JCCDC, that's Jefferson County Child Development Council, and they will accept. They're accepting infants all the way up to the age of 5. And they are in different areas in Birmingham. And I do have the telephone number if you want it.
That'd be great.
Okay. The telephone number is 933, the area code 205-933-1095. And I think that would be a big help to a lot of families. For some are out there trying to get a job, and Jefferson County Child Development Council are accepting children. And hopefully we'll start up next month. If we don't, we'll start up when the school system starts up. So I'm finding out that a lot of them are needing child care, and they are good because I am a provider.
Great. I think along the lines of whatever resources are out there, I think that helps. A lot of this, I know, Laura, you said, you know, you're trying to figure out from the BBA perspective if there are additional conversations to be had, questions, people looking for some of these kind of insights. So we'll kind of work together after this to see as well what resources we need to be sharing or having available for the group. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, if we don't have anything else, Laura, I know there might have been a couple of announcements in terms of other things coming up. Was there anything else you wanted to share?
You know, mainly just thank you everyone for participating and sharing and, you know, helping each other through this time. I know it's, you know, definitely a challenge. But, you know, one small way that we can help things is, you know, make sure you complete your census. They've extended the deadline to October 31st. And that is impactful on not only funds, but representation that we have. So make sure that you, your employers, your friends, your neighbors are filling that out, because I think we still have a good ways to go before we are where we need to be. But other than that, you know, thank you for everyone who participated.
Absolutely. Thank you all. If there's anything else that y'all would like to see in terms of the next BREC meeting or topics, we'd love to hear it. Feel free to send us comments or emails, and we'll look forward and hope you join us back again next time as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Thank you, BBA. Have a great day. Thank you, Jessica and Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martina, Bart, and Jason. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.